We are celebrating this summer our 25th anniversary of being on the radio. And so throughout the summer into the fall, we're going to take a little time here or there and just stop and smell the roses along the way. Stop and talk about, some of the history of this place and all the things that have happened around the Dave Ramsey Show up to this point. If you didn't know, we're at 586 radio stations, making us the third largest syndicated talk radio show in America, Rush being 1 and Sean being 2 and us being 3. And we appreciate that. Appreciate all of our affiliates out there carrying the show. And every single year for 25 years, we have had more stations than the year before. We've never gone backwards in a year-over-year setting. And because we've scratched and clawed and started from the bottom and worked our way up. We own this, and we're the only one of the major talk radio shows that you listen to out there that is not corporate owned by one of the big radio companies. We own it. We are happy that they agree to carry the show and that it makes them good ratings and good money, and that a lot of you listen to it, and we appreciate that. If you haven't heard the story, I started with nothing. Sharon and I got married broke. I started buying and selling real estate, and I got rich, at least by a kid from Antioch, Tennessee standards. I ended up with about $4 million worth of real estate, but I did stupid stuff and borrowed too much money, and I spent the next 2.5 years of my life losing everything we owned. We were sued and foreclosed on, and finally, with a brand new baby and a toddler almost 30 years ago, we were bankrupt and had to start completely over. We didn't bounce back. We sat around and whined and cried and blamed everybody else for our stupidity, but it was my stupidity that put us there. You ever done something stupid and blame other people? Well, I did. Turns out McDonald's does serve hot coffee. Yeah, I borrowed money, and it was my fault. I borrowed it stupid, and the banks decided to call the notes. I wasn't late. They just freaked out, and banks do that at different times in the economy over the years. But 30 years ago, they did that. And all of a sudden, Flip This House turned into Dave being flipped on his head. And we lost it and started completely over. After a while, though, I began to teach a Sunday school class at my church on God's ways of handling money, common sense, that I didn't have previously. And then I learned from old people with money. Live on less than you make. Get out of debt. Save money. Always be generous. Have a written plan. These are principles that work in good times and in bad times, and we began to talk about it, and people began to listen. I wrote a little book called Financial Peace, and I self-published it, which means I took it to the printer, and they printed them up. Nobody would buy them. I had carrying them around the trunk of my car, giving them away. My wife said we gave away the first 1,000. She's probably about right on that. First 1,000 were expensive, too. Cost me $4,682. Yeah, that's a lot. That's $4.60-something cents a piece. I don't pay that for the books now, 30 years later. So we wrote that little book, and I went on a radio show on a broke radio station. They were in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I went on as a guest a couple of times, and the phone rang while I was on because we were talking about helping people with money, and boom, it took off. And the radio station was WTN in Nashville. We're Talking Nashville. And that guy quit because they weren't paying him his $35. And a buddy of mine in the insurance business named Roy called me, Roy Matlock, and said, hey, me and you ought to go down there and do that radio show. And I said, I don't want to do a radio show. There's no money in radio. I need to feed my kids. I'm hungry. And he goes, well, it's only an hour a day. I could do a couple days a week. You do a couple days a week. And who knows, you might even sell some of that stupid little book you wrote. And so we went down and talked to a guy named David Manning, nicknamed Hollywood Manning. David's still in the business. I think last time I talked to him, he's with a rock station down in Jacksonville, Florida. And David, in his infinite wisdom, agreed to let us work for free, figuring he could fire us at any moment. We laughed and said, if we're really bad, you can cut our salary in half, but we were really bad, and he still didn't fire us. It gave us some ad spots. That was our compensation. We could sell or trade the ad spots to somebody. The ad spots were $6 a minute, which means for 100 ad spots, we could get $600 worth of something if you could talk somebody into advertising on this radio station that nobody listened to. And so we went on the air in the summer of 1992. And we were bad. I mean, we were really bad. We were corny. We're still corny. We were Southern. We're still Southern. But we were more corny and more Southern back then.
Well, closed circuit to those of you that are my friends in the banking business. Just kidding. Just kidding. I don't get a bunch of letters from you people.
Lighten up.
We're just having some fun. It's okay. No, we don't think everybody's a banker's a crook.
I mean, it's the same way with the people in the insurance business. We don't have anything personally against any of them. I mean, we just have a differing opinion when it comes to the products, of what's going on there. So, cheer up, guys.
And you have a radio show.
That's right.
7-3. You're just not fair, Roy.
My
it's
opinion
not
just
fair.
tends to be
right,
more vocal.
More right.
Yes. That's it.
737-9986 and 1-800.
Vocal. Right.
Daryl and his other brother, Daryl, do talk radio. Yeah, it's amazing. So we actually did end up, Roy quit, and I kept going, of course, and I ended up bringing in a voice coach from a broadcast school to teach me how to say ice instead of ice and going instead of going and W instead of W and so on. And sometimes I do it right still. We intentionally didn't keep working on it long enough to remove all of my Southern accent because I'm not ashamed of my Southern heritage. I just didn't want to sound like I was broadcasting from a double wide because a lot of you people in Boston still think I am. Stereotypes run pretty deep in this country, which are based on ignorance, of course, but very, very fun stuff. And, we stumbled along. And you know what was interesting? From the very first day, the phone rang. And no matter how bad we were at broadcast delivery, people could tell we cared, and they could tell that we wanted to help them, and they called for help. 25 years later, they still are. We're going to talk a little bit about this, a little bit more coming back in the next break. 25-year anniversary this year of the Dave Ramsey Show. So we're taking a little trip down memory lane and taking your calls for the rest of the show. The phone number is 888-825-5225. That's 888-825-5225. The summer of 1992, I went on the air with two other friends, Roy Matlock and Hal Wilson. Hal did a real estate theme hour on Friday, and Roy did a couple days a week, and I did a couple days a week. The show was called The Money Game, and I had hair, and I had big Mr. Magoo glasses, and a really, really thick Southern accent, to say the least. And, I think I was actually nicer then, too. It's not that my patience has run short. It's just that over 25 years of answering a lot of times the same question, I just don't suffer arguing with fools like I used to. I used to be kind and want to just convince somebody that was foolish. Now I just tell them, don't be foolish. It's good radio either way. I mean, but I think I was a lot more syrupy and kind of sweet tea then, and I'm probably just a stiff shot of Red Bull now, but it's funny how things change over time. And, of course, the longer you do something, the better you get at it, hypothetically, if you work at it. And so we see things around here in the calls and in the callers that we didn't see back then. We got conned a lot more back then by the caller. Today we can see through their crap a lot quicker. All of us around here, Kelly and me and James, all of us included while we're doing the show. And we went on the air. The radio station was a menagerie. It was WKRP from Cincinnati. There were some really good broadcasters on the shows at the time. in the morning, and there was real professional guys in the afternoon doing a sports show that was the only thing on there that had any ratings to amount to anything. There was a morning show had a little bit of ratings, and the rest of us were just a bunch of zoo animals they just put on the air because they could get them for free or close to free, and the thing was in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The lady that we did a show from 10 in the morning to 11, and the lady that did the show from 11 to 12 would read your palm over the air. It was a palm reading talk radio show. I am not making this up. You can't make this crap up. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was crazy. It was a bunch of characters, and some of them I still see from time to time, and always fun to run into them and brings back memories. It's almost like running into your old high school buddies or something, right? Or your old college buddies or something. It brings back the crazy memories of stuff people did. We were doing a show one day, and they had this young guy that was new that was the quote-unquote program director, which was kind of a joke, really. And he decided while we were on the air that he was going to come in to the studio and drop his trousers and moon us. And he was a large boy. And so, I mean, this was, yeah, and we're supposed to just keep talking like nothing happened, right? We did. We kept talking like nothing happened. We never even broke a smile. We just kept going. And, you know, he thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever done in his life, and I think he was still in college or something. It was just unbelievable. But, yeah, this is the kind of crap went on in these studios back then. I mean, that hadn't happened since, I can tell you that. Oh, what was weird was, though, the show started getting a following. From the very first day, people listened and started talking about it. And it might have been because it was so bad in terms of the delivery. The information was good. It was pretty much the same information. Not as polished and not as clearly delivered, probably, but it was the same principles of getting out of debt and cutting up your credit cards and living on less than you make and being on a plan and being in agreement with your spouse and having an emergency fund, investing long-term to build wealth. Roy was in the investing business, so he was looking for investing leads back then. And that was, you know, what he was getting out of doing the show. I was hoping to sell some of these little books for $12. Figured out pretty quick you got to sell a lot of $12 anything to eat. And so it really was not a moneymaker. As a matter of fact, the first 6 years we did the radio show, we lost money on it. It didn't make us money and or cost us money to get to do the show. When we started syndicating the show, we bought satellite time and, of course, didn't have any advertisers on the national network, which wasn't a national network. It had 4 cities. And so nobody wanted to advertise across 4 cities. That was kind of a joke. And so we couldn't make our satellite money back except by selling books or seminar tickets or something. And so we lost money for the first many, many years on it. But it was a good loss leader in the sense that this microphone has always caused you folks to do business with us, and we've always appreciated that. Then that little show led to another show, and we ended up, the station got sold to Gaylord Entertainment, and we figured at that point we were all getting ready to be fired because Gaylord owns Opryland Hotel, and at that time owned two of the country stations here in Nashville. So we figure this FM radio station isn't going to be a talk radio. If Gaylord owns it, we're all getting ready to be country, and so they're getting ready to punt us and put country music on. And they did some research and found out how many listeners we had, and they decided to keep it talk radio, which turned out to be a brilliant thing on their part because they made about $60 or $70 million profit on the radio station when they sold it later. And they came in and started teaching us how to do radio because we didn't even say the call letters, you guys, which is just straight up illegal. You're supposed to say the call letters once an hour. The local radio station is supposed to put their call letters out. The network show like this, I don't have to do it as a network show, but my affiliates right now all have to say the call letters at least once an hour. We never said the call letters one time. For 4 years I was on there. I'd say WTN occasionally just because I thought it sounded cool, but, and so they came back, started teaching us to to actually say the call letters and actually brand the radio station, and all of a sudden our ratings went way up because people actually knew who they were listening to. It was amazing. And so we went from not even appearing in the ratings book to being one of the top shows in the entire city within about 5 ratings books, which meant there was a bunch of people listening that weren't writing it down in the ratings book because they didn't know who they were listening to. So it's called phantom cum in our world. And so anyway, we learned all of that stuff and started cleaning up our act and being more professional broadcasters, in quotes. Some question if I've ever arrived at that. I doubt that I have, but it's working out okay. We've got almost 600 affiliates, so probably gonna end up being a broadcaster one of these days. Put me in a couple of Hall of Fames over it, so I don't know. But we'll stumble into it, I guess, before it's over. But so we continued on that journey, and these geniuses at Gaylord decided they were going to move our show to the afternoon, and they wanted to give us not 1 hour but 3 hours, and put me up head-to-head against Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, which were the hottest things on the planet. And I thought, well, that'll be about the end of that because, you go up against Elvis and rock and roll, you pretty much get beat, right? And so I'll be done after this. And I thought, you guys you're setting me up to die here. And they said, no, if you just even show up good against him, then other stations will want to carry you because nobody's got the antidote to Rush. And worked out pretty good because for many, many, many years in that time slot in Nashville, we beat Rush head-to-head, and we beat Sean head-to-head. Now, they whipped my butt in most markets, don't misunderstand. But this is our home turf, and the station we were on was a great station in those days. Very well run, very well programmed, and we were part of it. And we caught a wave. And so we were beating Hannity and beating Rush, and so stations all over America decided they want to start carrying the Dave Ramsey Show. And that's the beginnings of how this whole thing happened. So we'll do a few more walks down memory lane as we go along through the rest of the summer, celebrating our 25 years here on the air. Thank you for listening. If you're a brand new listener, or if you've been with us that whole time, we appreciate it. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button to get the latest content and check out these other great clips from the show.